Hi folks, hope this finds you well. I'm back with another vinyl update. Another one that should cover the stuff I've bought over the last 2 or 3 months, because the last week's video didn't get anywhere near completing those. Excuse me. But I'm actually going to start off with 6 albums that arrived this morning. They're from an online store here in the UK called Norman Records, and they were having a 50% sale on certain items, and you can't turn down a 50% discount. So first off, we have a 70s album by the Italian band Chinky Not Dough. I think this was their only album, which was originally released on the PDU label. I can't remember which year. Never mind. This is more in the jazz rock, jazz fusion vein, I think, than the normal Italian symphonic prog. They've got an unusual lineup of 2 keyboard players, both who play vibraphone, guitar and percussion according to this. But reading up about it, it sounds pretty damn good. 3 instrumental tracks on side 1 and a 20-minute epic on side 2, which does feature vocals, but it doesn't actually credit who the vocalist is. But I think it's one of the keyboard players. But looking forward to hearing that. Next up, the album Dreaming Again by band Stonefield Tramp, a band I've never heard of, but they're a sort of psych folk band for British. From this album was released in '74. It was actually their 2nd album, and they're a trio comprised of acoustic guitar, bass and electric guitar, so no drums. It gets good write-ups, this one, though it can be described as a little bit amateurish in terms of the musicianship, but everybody rates it, so I like my folk, so looking forward to trying that. Next up, another band I hadn't heard of. This is back into the prog vein, and this is an American prog band by the name of Pentwater, and this is their debut album from 1977. And if I read what it says on the Obi strip, you'll get an idea of what the music's meant to be like. Again, I've not heard this yet. And it says, often compared to Yes, Rush or King Crimson, Pentwater move in their own realm, relying on a complex tapestry of sounds such as electric violin, haunting flute, deep bass and guitar solos in the style of Steve Howe, as well as an intriguing structure of polyphonic vocals and extreme counterpoints. That last part makes them sound a bit like Gentle Giant, but no, should be good. This, sorry, is on, which label is it on? Can't make it out. Golden Pavilion. 500, limited to 500 copies. Next, going back and forth between the genre, an acid folk album that I've seen in books a lot, but I've never seen a copy out in the wild before. But this is a reissue of the Moonkite album. Count Me Out is the title. And I said this is acid folk, but it's supposedly very acid folk. It was recorded under the influence, should we say, but it's highly rated. It's die-cut sleeve, I think, as the original was. Behind it you've got the insert there. Again, supposedly very trippy, very much of its time. Another one to look forward to. Next up, staying with the in a 70s folk vein is the album Kosterlager by Mats Glenngard. Now, Mats Glenngard is a violinist, and this is his solo album from 1972. This is a reissue on the Subliminal Sounds label. Now, again, this gets very good write-ups, but this guy, after this, went on to join the Swedish prog band Kebnekaise, who, within their music there was a strong Swedish folk element, an excellent band. So I've got high hopes for this. And finally, from Norman is the album by Goblin Rebirth. Now, Goblin Rebirth are one of the 4 sort of versions of the Italian prog band Goblin that are out there at the moment. In fact, I think there were 6 at one point. And this features 2 of the guys who used to be, I think, in the original band, Fabio Pignatelli and Agostino Marangolo. I think they're the rhythm section. Now, the fact that there's 4 bands out there doesn't bode well, you'd have thought, but having read up about this and having heard some clips online, it sounds like it is in prime Goblin style. So I think this could be very good indeed. Right. Next one, one I'm really pleased to have got, especially as it cost me nothing. Freebie. This is Zeugengebote by Azmuth Teachings. Azmuth Teachings is a German avant-garde electronic guy, sort of maybe a bit like Konrad Schnitzler. This is an album that was released on a small UK label called A Mission Records back in, I think, was it? Doesn't say the year here. Was it about 1982, 84, somewhere around there? This was mentioned on a Facebook group that I'm a member of, and I posted that he could do with a vinyl reissue. And lo and behold, the guy that put this out got in touch with me and said he had a couple of copies that had been stored in a damp garage for years, and if I wanted one, I could have one for free. So I said yes please, as you would, not expecting a lot from his description, but when it arrived, the cover looks pretty damn fine. There's no water damage there. The vinyl itself looked pretty manky, to say the least, but when I cleaned it with my record vacuum machine, it cleaned up perfectly and plays near mint. I'm so pleased with this. And he threw in, if you can find it, a postcard that he got from Azmuth at the time of the release of the album, saying, "Hello Gordon, your letter arrived and I started to complete the artwork. It will arrive not later than September the 7th, together with detailed information upon the 2 hydrophenonian. Okay, that's all for today. Azmuth Teachings." That came from Hamburg. So nice little postcard to have with the album. I'm so pleased with this, because looking it up on Discogs, this goes now for about £125, and it cost me nothing, apart from I sent him a £5 for postage. So I'm so pleased with that, and it is a really good album. Next, 2 albums from the Synodelic label, which, if you remember, I showed some albums from in a previous video. They're an Italian label that specialises in soundtracks and Italian library music, and I enjoyed the ones I got in the past. so I thought I'd try a couple more. And the first one is by a group called Fourth Sensation. Like that cover. There you go on the back. And as it's a library album, you get no details as to who the musicians are. But I understand, I think if I remember rightly, the main guy behind this was one of the members of Area, but which one I can't remember. This is in that sort of instrumental, funk soul, prog vein, instrumental. It's very good, really nice album. Very well done by Syntelic as always, very thick cardboard covers. But the one problem I have with their releases is I wish they would put an insert in. On their website it tells you about the albums. I wish they'd put them as inserts because obviously with it being library music it gives you no details as to who these musicians are. So it would have been nice. What I think I'll have to do is print it out and put it in with the album. But that was an excellent album, but this one is an absolutely superb album, I think. Viaggio Pop by Narasa. Now Narasa is actually a guy, this guy, who is Sandro Sandro Brognolini, who was, or he's an Italian saxophonist, jazz saxophonist, who came to prominence in Rome, I think in the 1960s, with a sort of Miles Davis inspired group. But on this album there's very little saxophone. I think he mainly plays organ. But this, I think this is a cracking album, a superb album of funky prog instrumentals. Excellent. Again, lovely cover, brilliant artwork. And this UPVC cover has behind it a card with different colours. If I can just show you. So when it pulls in and out, and you get obviously different optical effects if it went in and out cleanly. Anyway, I highly recommend this album. Oh, if I should just tell you, it was originally released as two separate albums, number 1 and number 2, in 1974 on the AYNA label, or AYNA label. Oh, brilliant. Next, staying with prog, one of my favourite bands of all time, PFM, Premiata Forneria Marconi, with their new album, Emotional Tattoos. It's a double album. It comes with 2 CDs. One is the English version of the album, which is on the vinyl, and the other CD is the Italian version of the album. Now, I managed to see PFM live in Manchester last year, and before the gig I was a bit apprehensive, to say the least, because I didn't really know what to expect of them, but they were absolutely superb. They concentrated at 99.9% on their 70s material up to about the Chocolate Kings album, and they played and sang it brilliantly. So I had high hopes of this album, because the last studio album I bought by them, which was released in 2006, had been an instrumental prog album, which would have been very good. So I was a bit disappointed on listening to this, to be fair then, because it's not really a prog album. There are some tracks which have prog elements into them, but it's really a more mainstream AOR type of album. Having said that, it's a really good album. They play well, they sing well, the songs are decent. I think it's just the disappointment of my expectations. But I think it's the sort of album that the more I listen to it, the more I'll probably like it. Just, if you're going to buy this, just don't buy it expecting to hear their prog stylings of the 70s. It's not what you're going to get. Next, what have we got? The band that started it all for me. Focus. In Concert 1973. This is on the Progressive Vinyl Company label and is obviously an unofficial release. This is their concert from the Paris Theatre in London that they did for the BBC, and that's the first three sides. The fourth, and that's from January 1973. The next one gives light to the title because it's from the Earl Grey Whistle Test, side 4, and done in December 1972. But you get all their great tracks like Hocus Pocus, Sylvia, Eruption, Answers Questions, Anonymous, Focus 1 and 2 and 3, and it's in excellent quality recording. Really worth having. I love it. Right, the next album is a new reissue of an album that marries my love of the Grateful Dead with my love of percussion albums, and that's Mickey Hart's Planet Drum album. I've got this on CD, but this is a brand new reissue, double album. This is brilliant percussion of covering rhythms from all over the world, South American, African, Indian, with some of the world's best percussionists playing alongside Mickey Hart. Excellent. I really hope they get round to doing some of his other albums from this period, which are equally as good. Yep. Next, back to jazz, and one of my favourite jazz rock bands, Nucleus. And this is their first album, Elastic Rock. This is on the Tapestry Records label, the reissue, because their original albums cost a fortune. In fact, the week after I got this off eBay, I went to the Kendal Record Fair, and the guy there had the album Solar Plexus up on the wall behind him, and it had no price on it, so I'll ask him, expecting maybe £40–50, which would have been still too much. No, £200 he wanted for it. So I was going to get this at a normal price. Like I said, it's a reissue, but it is a brilliant album. What have we got next? Right. A few weeks back I saw the film Barbarian Sound Studio for the first time, which is like a homage to Italian gialli and horror movies of the 70s. And the soundtrack is done by the band Broadcast, which I've heard a lot about, but I've never heard anything by them. And I enjoyed the film so much that I thought I'd give the soundtrack a go. I mean, there are, 39 tracks on here, so there are a lot of very short tracks, or bits of talking as well as the music, but somehow it all works. It doesn't sound as bitty as it could have. I think this is a really good album, really good soundtrack. I'll maybe have to check out some of their other material. Oh, and watch the movie. If you like your Italian gialli and horror movies, I think you'll like that. Next one, an excellent album, Heavy Rock Spectacular by Bram Stoker. This is from, when was it? They were formed in 1969. I think this was from 1972. It's a reissue on the Talking Elephant Records, and this is heavy prog with a gothic element. It's probably given away by the name of the band. Some great guitar playing on here, great keyboards. Well worth having this one. Yeah, it was originally released in 1972 on the Windmill Records label. Check it out if you like your heavy 70s prog. Next, again back and forth between the genres, back to jazz rock fusion, and this is Larry Coryell's Spaces. Really nice jazz rock album with a great lineup of obviously Coryell himself on guitar, John McLaughlin on guitar, Chick Corea on electric piano, Miroslav Vitas on bass, and Billy Cobham on drums. Stellar lineup. Pretty much what you'd expect from this period, sort of jazz rock. Excellent instrumental jazz rock there. Next up, one of my favourite bands of the last few years. And I didn't even know this had been released on LP until I saw it on, somebody had it on eBay at quite a decent price. I think it was, no, it was on Discogs, that's it. And this is the Carousel of Headless Horses. Sorry, Miasma and the Carousel of Headless Horses is the name of the band, and the album is Perils. And the main guy behind this is Daniel O'Sullivan, one of the busiest men in rock, who's also played with Guapo and Ulver and many others. I'll read off the sticker. It says, a trip into an anachronistic world of neo-baroque psychedelia, featuring members of Guapo, Chrome Hoof, Ethanol and Cathedral. Limited edition, 666 copies. But to me, it reminds me more a lot of bands like Art Zoid and Universero. I love this album. They only ever did one other EP, I think, for the Latitudes series. I wish they'd have done some more. Because when was this? It was 2007. Superb. If you can find it, check it, get it. Even if you can just get it on CD, well worth having. Back to the last. Oh, next up, a brilliant album. One Nation Underground by Pearls Before Swine, obviously led by Tom Rapp. I knew of this band for years and years, and I'd read so much good things about them, but I'd never actually listened to them. And when I saw this was being reissued by, I can't tell the label, just Drag City, reissued on the Drag City label, I thought, I've got to try it, and I am so glad I did. This is superb psychedelic vocal rock of the American style, psych. It is brilliant, a brilliant album. I'm going to have to check out some of the other stuff by them and Tom Rapp's solo stuff. I can't speak highly enough of this album, and it has a superb Hieronymus Bosch cover. Excellent. Finally, two new albums by two Scandinavian prog bands. I sometimes think that the best music's coming out of Scandinavia at the moment, and the Nordic countries generally. First up, we have the Norwegian band Wobbler and their new album From Silence to Somewhere. This is superb 70s style prog, absolutely brilliant. I love these. before this I'd only got their first album on CD. The other albums seemed fairly difficult to find, to be honest, at a decent price. But if you like your sort of keyboard driven 70s style prog but with a modern edge, try out Wobbler. And finally, one of my favourite bands of the last few years, Goose from Sweden. This is even better than the Wobbler. Very much organ driven. This is just like I say, self-titled. This is, I think, their fourth album. They've done 2 studio albums and a live album. I've got all of them, and every one of them is absolutely outstanding. Again, very much in that 70s prog vein. I think I'll leave it there. I've still got quite a few other ones to show you, but tomorrow is the Kendal Record Fair, so I'll be getting more stuff, I should imagine. Well, hopefully. I hate to go all that way and not pick something up. But what I might show you before I go, if you don't mind, music related but not music itself. For the last 2 years or so I've been getting some of my posters, you might have seen behind me sometimes, framed and put up, and I went to pick up the latest 4 that I've had done. If you don't mind, I'll show you them. First one is this poster of Jimi Hendrix, a nice voodoo child. Okay. The next one, the Beatles, Shea Stadium, August the 15th, 1965. I don't know whether these are real posters for the concert or their artwork knocked up more recently, but I think I really like that picture. It's going to look good up on the wall. Next, I love my prog and I love my Roger Dean. And I have 5 other Roger Dean posters framed up on the wall. I've got Ossie Bisa, the artwork for their first album, the artwork for Greenslade's first album, Relayer, Fragile and Yes Songs. But I found this recently and I had to have this. This is another superb picture by him that was for the Paladin album. Can't remember the year, but the early 70s. I'm looking forward to putting that up somewhere. I've got to decide where. And finally, one of my favourite bands is Magma, and this is a poster done for a French concert in Torcy this year. You can see that unusual shaped poster. It doesn't actually say Magma anywhere, but you get the Magma insignia there. You can never find a decent Magma poster. But I think I'm really happy with that. That'll take pride of place somewhere. Anyway, that's a digression. I hope to do another video soon. Like I say, I've still got quite a few that have got records for the last 3 months, and there'll be stuff presumably coming out at tomorrow's record fair. Well, everybody take care. Hope you're all well and all the very best. Bye.